Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Strong Women series. We are so honored to have Charisse Myers today. She is a marketing professional, she is a book club creator, and she's also a theater producer. She's working on a play right now for Off Broadway. And so we're just happy to get to know you a little bit more. How are you?
I'm doing good, quarantine life, relaxing, taking it slow one day at a time.
This is,
But yeah, I'm good.
I see we have matching puffs too. I was mentioning it earlier.
Oh,
Look, this was the trend for today.
this is definitely it. When I just need to throw my hair up, puff always works, always.
Honestly, like you guys are gonna see all my videos, I have some kind of band on, and it's because I don't have time for it. And also, I'm not very good at doing my own hair. I need help. Send me help, please.
I feel that. I feel that. I also have scarves and things somewhere, but like they're really long. So the wrapping process takes longer than just doing this. See?
I got you.
Right.
Well, amazing. I'm just excited to have you on here. We kind of go way back.
Yeah.
um, Church a while ago. I don't know. I guess 5 years ago too.
Six. Oh my God. Yeah, it's been like it's been at least 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. And we were connected a bunch of different ways. So that I think Becca might have connected us to begin with.
Yeah, that sounds about right. With
Yeah,
Becca, probably the beginning, still through church and everything of that nature.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
I,
And then you kind of came along, also part of the Bravely Rise journey, and we got to hear your incredible story there and see you work through that process. And we just kind of stayed in touch throughout the years, even though we were not necessarily in the same place anymore. Um,
yeah.
and you just have so much knowledge. I mean, you're younger than me, but you carry yourself in a way that you're like, yeah, I've been around the block a little bit. I know what I'm talking about. Um,
Thank you.
you've really done some incredible work and entered spaces. I mean, you would probably say this too, but entered some spaces where you're breaking ground too, where you're the only one who maybe looks like you in certain spaces. So I'm just excited for people to hear a little bit more about your story. Yeah, so we're gonna get into it in a sec.
Sweet.
Um, so tell me a little bit about your name. What does it mean? Do you like it?
Oh, okay. My name. Well, first off, my name is actually my mother's name. We have the same name, but it is kind of flipped. So I am Charisse Marcia, and she is Marcia Charisse.
Oh,
I firmly say my mom and my dad both say they picked that name because my dad loves it. She loves the middle name. But I also know that I was born 2 months early. So I'm just like, I know y'all ran out of time. It's okay for you to admit. It's cool. But my name is, it's like debate. It comes from both French and Greek origin. But ultimately it means hope and peace.
wow,
Hope, peace, and kindness.
wow.
So it's like, yeah, I love it. I do love my name, and there's not that many people who have it. I haven't met that many Charisses, or if I have, it's not spelled the same. So I feel like it's very unique to me. In all of my nicknames, Reese Cup, all Reese, Shar, all of the variations of Charisse. But yeah, I've always loved my name. I've always loved Charisse Marcia. Charisse Marcia Myers. I've always loved the flow of my name. So.
It does have a nice little ring to it there.
Yeah, they thought of something. They might have just been like lazy with it, but it turned out great. It turned out great, honestly.
I know. It's gonna be rough. I'm telling you, when you get married and you gotta make that decision. Because I love my maiden name too. When I was like, it just breathes, it flows. Like I love it. It's powerful.
Yeah,
My husband was like, "You want to change that, right?" And I was like, "I
I've
can't."
always I've thought about that too. Of like, if when I get to that point, like, do I want to hyphenate? Like, do I want to like? But I'm also just as much as I'm attached to my last name, I'm attached to my middle name, and that will stay. So I'm just like, it depends. I might hyphenate it. We'll see. We'll see.
Decision to make for later, so that's fine. Awesome. Well, hey, tell us a little bit about your journey with God. How's that been like for you?
What a roller coaster. I've always been in the church. I've grown up in the church. Both my parents were very involved in the church from the time I was a baby. Um, so I haven't really known life without
Mhm.
God. Like, I haven't known life in without that space, without church, without the Bible, without all of those fundamental things. Um, But even in knowing that, and I think a lot of people's story is that you grow up in the church, but because you're growing up in the church, it becomes more of a habit or a practice, but not active. Like it's not an active part of your journey. You're just doing things out of habit. You're just going to church every Sunday. You have Bible study. You have connect group, peace out, whatever your small group thing is. You have rehearsals, and you have all of the things that you do as a part of church. But it really is just kind of going through the motions. It's hard. I realized at a certain point, probably in high school, that I couldn't firmly explain why I was a Christian. I
Mm.
couldn't give in-depth understandings of why people should be interested in it, especially as someone who reads a lot, who is an intellectual, who is always in those honors and AP classes, who is always very much around people who think a lot. And when you're a Black person also in that space, there's a lot of combating ideas of like, how can you believe something when it was used for this reason, or if it was given as an example for this, that, and the third. And that made me really have to pare back or peel back the layers of what my faith really was, and why I chose to, or why I was still a Christian in that sense. And it wasn't until college where I finally was out on my own. I'm miles away from home, even though I was still in New Jersey. I was in North Jersey, but I grew up in South Jersey, and I was without a church home for like the first time. And I was like, man, what? Like it feels so weird. It feels very, very weird to be without that space, without that connectivity, without that community. And I had been praying about it for a long time. Like, all right, I need that. I need that space. I need that community. I need the teaching and the activeness in that. So about my sophomore year, that's when I found out about Hillsong Church through Instagram. I did not know Hillsong music was associated with the church. I had no idea. And that's when Hillsong Montclair, like the Montclair campus, started my sophomore year. And I started going from that point on. And that was the first time I actively chosen a place of worship. That was the first time I had stepped out and tried and discovered God, I felt like, for myself. It was the first time of me developing my faith on my own without my parents waking me up in the morning going, you have to go to church, you have to do this, you have to do that, without that extra voice. And that was essential for me. And that was a big light bulb switch, because that's where it started my studying of the Bible more. That's when it started like my learning and the historical applications of the Bible, so I can put in present tense. That's what started like me leading connect groups and not just going and serving and waking up at 5 a.m. and like wanting to actively be there because I believed in it in a different way. And it kind of reignited my faith in a way in which before it was kind of dormant. So, or it was just kind of steady, but I couldn't really explain it. I couldn't really go in depth with Bible verses that I recited my whole life, but didn't know any context of them. So it's just been such a developmental journey throughout the years, of just being in one way and then actively choosing to be a part of it, and then seeing how that active choosing has affected so many more of my decision making and my stability in my own decision making and choices, because of my relationship with God, not because of other people speaking into me, but because of my own firm foundation. That's been a continuous cycle for me. So it's been constantly moving and growing, and that's all I can really say about it. It's been a constant development, for sure.
That's incredible. It's interesting because I didn't have the experience of kind of that steady staying. I started there,
Mhm.
but definitely departed and had a very like abrupt departure from
Yeah.
like or believing in anything. But one of the things that I just loved seeing, when I had started attending church, I think I was 26, so I was a bit older from the crowd, which is crazy because I know most churches, this is like, what, 26, that's young.
Yeah.
But at Hillsong, right, like there are so many young people, and I'm like, man,
Mhm.
I missed something. I missed everything. Like, what was I doing with my 20s, my young 20s? What was I doing in my teens? And there was this ache, for a bit of like wishing I could go back almost and know this life
Mhm.
earlier. why did I know about this earlier? Why was I like, out in this other space? And of course, I know that everything works exactly the way it's supposed to. I needed to have those experiences to be where I am today.
Yeah.
But I just think that there's something so beautiful about that steady staying power, that steady staying,
Yeah.
not that you have your doubts or your questions. And
Mhm.
I think that that's a little bit, your story kind of reminds me of mine in the, like, I needed to know on an intellectual level too.
Yeah.
I had this huge, like, personal encounter with God, right? So I had all the
Mm.
feelings there, and I knew God was real after my encounter,
Yeah.
um, but my head was still fighting with certain things, and I was pursuing it from this, like, intellectual space. And
Mhm.
I remember one of the things that I did, which is absolutely crazy, and I don't necessarily recommend anybody else do it, but I wanted to know everything, like, day of. Like, I got saved, boom, next day, I'm like, I need to know the whole Bible right now. And I think I've read the Bible, the whole thing, the first time around. I did it in 30 days, just nonstop,
Oh.
just all the way through. Like, I don't know what I would take, but I was so eager because I was like, I need to know what this says. I need to know, and I just had this, like, panic about, like,
Yeah.
and
That's real.
it's crazy looking back at it. I'm like, what? You have your whole life to kind of dig into this space. But I think it did set a foundation for me for knowledge seeking, which sounds like kind of
Mhm.
where you're at too. So I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me a little bit about the purpose, the mission that you feel like God has put on your heart, how it's carried out
Mm.
in your life. What projects are you into?
Yeah. I really feel like so much of my life, the purpose of my life is about connection and connectivity. So connecting people together, but also, so it's been also about showcasing other people's talents as well as my own. So I really do live to amplify the voices of other people, especially in marginalized communities. I really live to do that. That's so much of my purpose and what I want to do. And so my work in every which way has reflected that. Whether that be in what I do now, I work for an entertainment company that focuses on marketing for, I work with like Hulu, HBO, Netflix, so on and so forth. But my focus is specifically around people of color. Like, if you're having content, who is it reaching? Who is it getting out to? How do you tap into these communities so they know that they're seen and heard and felt? um, and how do you also showcase content and directors and producers and artists that are from those backgrounds, and how do you amplify those voices? So that's where that's come in my producing space. And I've been producing this play called Rape Game that's about um, love, relationships, and dating post-sexual trauma
Mm,
and navigating that space.
mm,
And it's by a phenomenal Black playwright named Jerica White. And so I was really excited to jump on that project because she's a great young emerging playwright that I immediately wanted to amplify and believed in the work that she was doing. So that's where my love of producing kind of came in. So it's been very practical applications in that sense, while also bringing people together in other mediums that I really enjoy. I'm an avid reader. I love reading. I have like, I think my Instagram handle says, or my bio says, a joyful Black girl that's most likely reading too many books at once, because truly I am. But I started a book club with one of my friends called Beyond the Book, and it's a space specifically for men and women to come together and speak about books and to connect over certain topics. And I don't think there's enough spaces where men and women are actually debating and having really good, healthy conversations about content. So we intentionally created that space, and it's blossomed over the months. And so that's really just, I just love that. I love bringing people together. I love amplifying people's voices, and the more in which I can do that, like, even better. So that's really, that's definitely my purpose. I love doing it.
So what, coming back a little bit to you deciding to direct a play, like, how did you even get involved in that? So somebody who is interested in that field, like, how did you say, okay, I'm going to do this?
Well, for me, okay, so I live in New York. I live in Brooklyn, and I'm also pretty social, even though I do like to relax and take time for myself. I'm very social, so I'm always looking at what plays to go to, what musicals to see, um, what events that are around those topics are, like what's happening, what's going on. I found out about Walk Talk Girl Productions, Black theater company, company all about um, amplifying the voices of Black creatives and trying to get more Black people involved in theater. So I found out about that and was really interested in going to as many free events and stuff as possible. And through that, I just gained a lot of great connections with other young people who are just interested in the same things or interested in similar spaces, and really using social media as a way to get to know more people. So through that, through those different mediums, even through church, uh, even fascinating enough, I found more people interested in theater through church. And with that, I met the actual playwright herself. We've been friends for um, about a year or two now, and I've known her because she goes to C3. I've visited C3 3 different times. I know that she was also really involved in a lot of Black theater spaces, and so we had just constantly been seeing each other and interacting. So connectivity also led to me being able to step into this producing space, and she actually reached out to me just going, hey, I think this is something you'd be really interested in based on the conversations we've had.
Mm.
And so I was just like, yes, absolutely, because she's also had experience producing Broadway shows. So she knew that I was interested in the producing space just from meeting with her and asking her how she got in that door. So it became a constant thing of not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to put myself out there and say, I don't know, but you know, so I would like to know what you know. And just using that tool and my own like desire for connectivity to feed into the other things that I'm interested in. So that's how that natural progression kind of came about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's so key. And what's funny is like I'm somebody who really struggles with those connections. So I think part of I love going deep. I'm like one of those people like I want to sit down with you, even if it's the first time. Tell me
Yeah.
your story. I want to know. But what it does is it makes me shy away from spaces where I can just actually connect with people. Um,
Mhm.
because I'm so in my head about it. So it's really difficult, which is why I love doing these kind of things. So I'm actually getting to
Yeah.
hear people's story in a space that feels a little calmer. But I think you're absolutely right. Asking that question, like, or saying, I don't know, but somebody else knows. So let me go ask them, and having the courage to ask questions. It's such a big deal.
That's something that I actually learned from my dad, because he doesn't even remember this, but I think it was in college. We're always so afraid to ask people questions or ask for help or ask for anything because we feel like we're burdening somebody else, or that no one's going to want to help us, or we have to do it on our own, right? And so I think I was at a crossroads once in college where I was just looking for an internship, trying to figure things out, and my dad had known some people who worked in entertainment that were pretty high up through college connections and stuff. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to email this person. Like, what if they don't answer? Or like, I don't want to bother her. She's really busy. And he was just like, how selfish of you.
Yeah.
How egotistical of you. I said, excuse me? And I'm thinking, like, what do you mean? Like, I feel so small and little. Like, I don't want to mess with the big person. And he said, your ego and selfishness is blocking the other person whose God has blessed them with certain abilities and talents in the process from using that process and using those skills to help somebody else. You are blocking them from using their blessings and their gifts to help someone else because you're too afraid to ask.
So good.
And because you feel like you have to do it yourself. From
Yeah.
that moment on, I was like, okay, cool. You know, like it completely shifted the way I thought about being open and willing to ask for help. And so many people, I realize even now in my space, I'm very young, I'm only 25. I want to do that for girls who are in college and stuff. And I always get so excited to try to help somebody or give somebody a tip or something if they ask for it. So it's like hindsight is 2020, but I look back and I'm like, why was I so afraid? Even me and my young self, with the experience, the limited experience I have, I really want to use that to help somebody. So who knows how much people who've had 20 plus years of experience want to do that same thing, you know? So
So good. And it's such a great perspective switch too.
Mhm.
Um, because I think that there are more people in this world who are eager to help
Yeah,
than, but sometimes we have like this bad experience with asking help for that one person, and it went so badly until we kind of, put up those walls of like, oh no, I'm just gonna figure this out myself. I know that's definitely what kind of happened to me, so it's
yeah,
like this kind of fear of like, oh, I don't want to ask for help because, but it really does. It does block the blessing from the person who can help, but also for you because, you're only limiting your own growth at that point too. God put people around us to help us, right? So that we can continue to fulfill that purpose. And so we've got to be bold and we've got to like, ask the questions.
yeah,
So
and not be afraid to. Like you even something you said about being kind of in your own head when it comes to that kind of stuff. Something that I learned about this book that I constantly go back and read is called Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. And she talks about the stories that we tell ourselves. Like whenever you see a text message and you say something like heartfelt and then you see the three dots come up and they disappear, you immediately tell yourself a story that, oh, this person da 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 da, because your brain doesn't like uncertainty, right? Your brain hates uncertainty. So it creates a story. So even in the times in which we think a situation went bad because, say, we sent an email or somebody said they would help us, and no, they ended up dropping the ball or they didn't, and now you feel like you can never ask for help because people are just going to do that to you. That person could have easily just slipped and forgot an email, forgot to do something. And if we would just think in that manner, we would send a follow-up email and just say, hey, just checking in, making sure we're good. And they're like, oh my God, yes, right. But because that initial thing we're telling ourselves in our brains that's usually negative, um, we're too afraid to do the follow-up.
mhm.
Or we do the follow-up or that person says, no, I'm so sorry, like I'm too stressed, I can't do too much right now. We don't think to go to somebody else because we think they'll have the same answer too. It's like a psychological thing
So
that
real.
gotta get out of our heads a little bit, even though it's very hard to do so.
You're,
um,
you're literally like opening up my brain and like saying it out. Like that's exactly how I feel about things.
it's literally like how it is. Like it's just the
Yeah.
stories you're telling yourself is your brain trying to protect you a lot of times. But sometimes we have to tell our brain, hey, I see you, I see that fear. We don't have to acknowledge it right now.
And it also, like, at the end of the day, it comes back to your trust in God, right?
Yes.
It really is because, there is that fear that somebody doesn't have your back. There's that fear that somebody
Mhm.
what they've said. But if you're having that trust in God, then
Mhm.
you move past that fear
Yeah.
anyway, you know? But I think, I mean, I literally, this has been, if you ask, like, well, I don't know if anybody really knows, but if I were to ask me again somewhere else, I feel like this is one of my biggest kind of areas of growth, like areas that I need to work on because I think, I grew up as an only child, like, my siblings came much, much later on.
Yeah.
And so I was raised to be very, very independent and to kind of be self-sufficient. And in so many ways, that's a great thing. That's helped me a lot. But I have also reached my limits in a lot of areas because I need help, because I don't know, because I don't understand, but I'm too afraid to take that next step and move forward.
Mhm.
Um, and and afraid, not so much in I'm gonna annoy them or bother them, but to be honest, afraid that I'm gonna be disappointed by somebody. That has been my biggest thing. I'm afraid to be disappointed by somebody because
Yeah.
in my mind, disappointment is probably the worst thing that I can feel towards someone. It's worse than anger. It's worse than like you did something evil to me or like anything like disappointment for some reason of all of the feelings that I carry, it feels like the heaviest one. And so I've operated in a space that rather than be disappointed by somebody that I know or trust or look up to or love, I'd rather just go right around it. Um,
Ooh.
what's interesting though is on the alternate side, then it's made me someone who, like, I feel like I'm very dependable. If I say I'm going to do something, even if I lose sleep, I'm going to do it because I don't
Mhm.
do that on the other end. But in receiving, I mean, if you ask me, it's very difficult to offer me help unless
Ah.
unless you're coming in and just being like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this for you. It's done already." Like And then I'll be like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Oh, whew, that's, girl, that is so real. That is so real. I don't even, man, I think I definitely get that same feeling, because for me, something that it kills me, and it's such a pet peeve of mine, is when people set up plans, or a plan is set and I usually like prioritizing it and doing this, and someone reschedules or like cancels the last minute or can't, and then it's a continuous thing, then I'm like, wait, it's like the story I'm telling myself is that I'm not as prioritized or as cared for, and therefore it would make more sense for me to just do this myself. When it could just be, this person's done with a busy season, they have this, that, and the third going on, and they probably shouldn't have set the plan up to begin with, but they were trying. It could be all of those factors, but in my brain, I'm like, I wasn't good, and I wasn't, it wasn't, they don't care enough about me to set this up, or they just, I'm not going to continue to put myself out there because I don't want to be disappointed or being left by myself or whatever. Like, that is always the fear that I have to combat, and just be like, give people grace. Sometimes it happens. Communicate how you're feeling and see where things go, because people also don't know that I'm feeling that way.
That's so true.
Unless I'd say something.
Yeah, well, also because we're kind of living in this culture of I'll make plans until something better comes along. If that makes
Ooh,
So yeah, I'll totally be there. I'll totally be there. Oh, but then something else came up, so now I can't be there anymore. And like, oh
mhm.
yeah, I was gonna go to this thing with you, but actually this, and it's a pet peeve of mine too. It's the same thing. Um, but I think it is a space. There's two things happening. One, you're absolutely right. We need to have more grace for people in those spaces. But then it comes a boundary question. It becomes a boundary issue,
Yes.
and understanding who you're allowing into your space, right? So if I
Mhm.
and I heard this from yeah, so I was actually, this is not my original thought, but it like transformed the way that I was doing things about just maturity is how much ownership people take, right? And their responsibility. And so if you're somebody who is allowing somebody who has shown to be less responsible in their life, and you're letting them into your close inner circle, well, then you're inviting that into your close inner circle.
Mm,
Is going to become more of a problem for you, not for the person. The person's operating how they always do. And I think that's something I didn't realize necessarily in friendships when I was younger. I was kind of letting anybody who, for my desire to be around people, I would let anyone into my inner circle. And that had disastrous results. So
yeah.
as an adult now, it is about finding that balance, because yes, you want to have grace for people, but there's a difference between grace because somebody slipped up one time versus
Mhm.
this is consistently what they do. And that goes for
Yeah.
relationships too, for some of you who might be hanging on to some relationships that you need to let go of, right? The patterns of what people are doing actually do show how they're prioritizing you.
Yeah.
So, man, I don't even know how we got off on that
I don't
tangent.
know, but that's real. It's real. It's so real. Okay. Boundaries is something I'm also learning in full right now, and learning how to be proactive in setting them, but also when you're setting your boundaries, knowing that um, setting your boundaries is not just you for you, it's new for you. It's also new for everyone else that you know, interact with. So if they react, they can react however they want. Ultimately, that's up to them. You cannot control that. People are able to react in ways in which they're going to react. You cannot create or control that at all. And you should not put pressure on yourself to be able to do that. But it's an adjustment for everybody. So people who expected me to do certain things or go above and beyond in spaces in which really really shouldn't have been going above and beyond, because it was coming at a detriment of my own peace and relaxation, um, and self-care and everything of that nature, that when I say no to it, that's automatically, what? Well, why? It's like, no, it's a complete sentence. No, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's such a hard thing for people too, because again, our culture, we are, I think more than ever before, people have constant access to us. Constant access. And so like at any point, if somebody texts you and you don't text back right away, if all of these things, but the thing is, like, you can't shut down, you can't shut off. Your job can reach you at any hour, people can reach you at any hour.
Mhm.
And it is a little bit exhausting. It's taxing, right, to not be able to necessarily unplug. I mean, you could shut your phone
Yeah.
off, but the expectation is still on the other side, and so like
Mhm.
something I try to do with people is like I'm very clear, like folks, like, hey, at 10 o'clock my phone is on do not disturb, please don't call me after that, right? 10 p.m.
Mhm.
I'm not going to get up to pick up a call, like, and I try to be very expressive with what my boundaries are. And now, like new relationships that I'm making with people, I'm very clear also, like, hey, you don't have to try to fit me in if you can't. Like, only make this plan with me if you can. It's okay if you can't. Like, I'm very like,
Yeah.
again, if somebody like does it once, it's fine. Twice, I'm like, third time, I'm like, oh, we're not doing this again. Like, we're not making plans again.
Mhm.
And for me, it kind of does help to continue to see that person with value too. So it is like a value thing. Like, I am valuing and honoring you as well. But if you continue to do this, it's going to make me see you differently. Like, there's no way around it. I'm going to see you differently, and I don't want to see you differently.
I do
So
not want to see you differently at all. Like,
I'm like, I'm setting you up for a win. Really, that's what's going on.
yeah.
But man, wow, thank you so much for kind of opening up and sharing on that space. We weren't planning on talking about that, but maybe there's
Not
someone
at all.
who needs to hear exactly that.
Mhm.
So I guess before we kind of close up, round up, I just, I want to take a second just to talk about COVID, because I know that has,
Mhm.
impacted you in some capacity. So do you want to talk just briefly about what the season has
Yeah.
been like for you?
Ooh, this season has been so much in so many different ways. Work wise, so like I said, I work in entertainment as an account executive for this company, and but in that space, I work a lot in event spaces, in screenings, in influencer events, in things that are with people. And because of that, so much of my team or my section of the company has kind of been at a standstill because theaters are closed, event spaces are closed. You can't meet with more than 10 people. And so everything has been kind of shut down. So I was furloughed for my job about it's been a month now. It's been about a month now. But it's just temporary, and that I kind of feel grateful, and in that sense that I wasn't laid off and I'm not searching for work and everything of that nature. But we're just kind of in a pausing space to see um, when we can restart and start things back up again, because we know that once that happens, once um, outside opens back up again, there's going to be such a desire for more connectivity stuff, like connection and in-person events and things of that nature. So I know work will kind of go like that. Um, but in that space, it's been that I've just been trying to navigate even things in living and roommates and all of that nature, because everyone's dealing with this in different ways. Everyone's emotionally taking this on in different ways. And so people are acting somewhat out of character. It's just a new space for everyone. And so you're dealing with a lot of different personality issues in that sense too. But it, it's one of those things, again, of being able to figure out and give grace while also prioritizing and taking care of myself. So I'm nice and relaxed now. I'm chilling in Jersey with my family in the suburbs, getting to walk around with my dog outside, the whole thing. And this has been, even in the midst of that madness and all of those news and things of that nature, this has been a great season for learning how to slow down
Yeah.
and learning how to pause. Because most of my friends know I'm usually out of my apartment. I'm usually home um, by like 9, 10 o'clock, 4 to 5 days out of the week,
Wow.
because of work, then events and screenings or whatever it is, and doing something, going to this event, going to supporting this friend here, doing all of these things that in my calendar, I'm scheduling every little thing because I need to figure out my time, because I spend so much time doing so much. This has been a season of complete pause,
Yeah.
of, hey, God being like, hey, Charisse, take a step. Well, take a step to breathe, focus on yourself and what you're feeling, and staying that feeling space. I really struggle with going from feeling, thought, action, but just feeling, thought, action. The feeling space doesn't really get sat in
Mm.
um, to really understand my emotions and feelings, and knowing and spending time in prayer and doing all of that and being like, God, what is this season for me? That has been so important, so that my thoughts and then my actions are different and yield different results because of the fact that I am taking the time to breathe and focus on myself.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing all of that. Charisse, it has been awesome talking to you today. We'll put some contact information out for how you can reach Charisse if you're interested. We'll put it up on the screen in just a moment. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on Instagram at strongwomen_of_God. Until next time, take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.